Hello, this is just a show, and today we're just gonna be rambling. I'm just gonna say whatever comes to mind, and we're just gonna roll with it. I mean, the thing that I love about this type of video is that there are no mistakes unless you stop speaking. And I'm not very good at talking, but I'm very good at keeping the words going, I suppose. So the first thing that comes to mind is something that used to drive me nuts all the time. I don't know if anyone else has ever had this problem. I'm sure that they have. There's 8 billion people in the world, so statistically speaking, it's happened somewhere. But my mom used to say that I was grounded, but there was no reason that I was grounded. It's not like she did it to spite me. I don't know. I guess you could say that I was grounded a lot as a kid. It was normally because that was my mom's solution to everything. It's like a one-size-fits-all sweater of corporal punishments. But there were several times that she would tell me that I was grounded, but she couldn't come up with a reason. So it was a catch-22 because either I accepted it and I was grounded for however long until she decided that I was ungrounded, which again is up to her discretion, and since she decided that I'm grounded and she's prone to forgetting things, it could be from tomorrow till, I have a beard and kids and a house. But the other option is I could fight it. I could be like, listen, you can't even come up with a reason I'm grounded. I don't think that is sensible terms to say that I'm grounded. What if you can't even think of the reason that I'm supposedly grounded in the first place? Which I can't argue with her, even if I did it in the most polite way possible, because she'd be like, you're back-talking me, you're grounded, so, you're just screwed either way, so it's just easier just to shut up and take the punishment, because there's no way that you could argue against logic like that, because there is no logic. It's just like it's like the skit of Abbott and Costello, who's on first. Why? Because, there's no logic there. There is a logic there, but it's just a solution. It's just a situation that you're not gonna win. And thinking about grounding, I know whenever I thought about it, I thought about a very specific set of rules. For me, grounding, whenever she said I was grounded, she said you were grounded for a week. It's okay, I would take that, if it starts on Wednesday, that means it ends whenever next Wednesday gets there. So I consider Wednesday starting Tuesday night. So at 12 o'clock, 12 p.m., or I suppose it'd be a.m., the midnight on Tuesday leading into Wednesday, that's whenever the grounding stops. So at 12:01 in the morning, I would get up and play video games because I was ungrounded and I had been going through withdrawal systems. I've been going through withdrawals because I hadn't played video games in a while. As you can tell, you might say that I'm slightly addicted to video games, but only slightly. I don't have a problem. I can stop whenever I want. I just don't want to. I don't want to, and you can't make me. Something else that I think about is a deck of cards, and I remember reading somewhere, and I can't figure out if this is full of crap or not, but something interesting about a deck of cards is that, all the face cards, the jacks, kings, and queens. Yeah, because I don't think the jokers are based off of anything. It'd be cool if they were, but they're not. But all of the face cards are based off of famous kings and queens throughout history. One of them, I remember, is based off Charlemagne. I think Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, Queen Elizabeth, Julius Caesar, and there's a few other people. It's just kind of neat that it's inspired by historical figures. But something else, I remember reading that there's a fact that the standard deck of cards, 52 cards in it, that if I was to take out a deck of cards right now and shuffle it, there's so many different card variations of the way that those 52 cards can be ordered that statistically speaking, that specific deck arrangement has never happened in the history of card games anywhere. And that's just mind-boggling to think about because cards have been around for a long, long time. So to think that I could make a deck combination that hasn't happened before anywhere is just nuts to think about. Now, whenever I think about cards, I think a lot about poker, and it's like, whenever you think about poker, you think about all the ways that people cheat with poker. And I don't know, with like all the ways you see in movies if people cheat at poker, I feel like it might just be easier to rob the people around you than to come up with some like contraption that like some technique of like hiding aces up your sleeves or like having contraptions that replace cards or misdirection. There's just so much complicated BS that goes into like cheating or rigging a card game or like specific way to like shuffle the deck in your favor and stuff. If you're gonna go that far just for like however much money is at stake, it's probably just easier to kill the people around you and find a way to cover it up. I know that sounds dark, but you know, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that I would kill people in a card game as opposed to cheating. I'm just saying it's an option. And I'm always for looking at everything as options, you know, never taking anything off the table. And whenever I think about that, like the way that I view morality, I never take anything off the table. No matter how horrible or terrible it is, I always consider it an option. So I can make that distinction between good and bad, because whenever you view the world as, you know, you sort of like force yourself to do good things, I don't think it means as much as whenever you blatantly put that temptation in there. Like, I think about whenever I'm doing something or whenever I'm doing homework, the thought always crosses my mind is like, yeah, I could light this homework on fire and throw it all out the window and never go to college again. That wouldn't be very beneficial to the thing that I'm trying to do here. And I think that gives me a lot more like freedom as a person than sort of like putting myself into a narrow-minded hole of thinking to where like I have to do homework, I have to go to college, otherwise I'll never be successful and make anything out of myself. Because you got to have all of those options. Now that I'm thinking about college, let's talk about toast. I'm not necessarily a giant fan of toast. And it drives me nuts whenever people say that, you know, toast goes into a toaster, bread goes into a toaster. Also, something else, there's like, you got all kinds of different kinds of bread, and then there's Texas toast. Is it from Texas? And whatever you think about it, it's not surprisingly big for its size. Like, Texas is supposed to be that thing where like everything is bigger in Texas. And it seems relatively small for bread. Like, if I was going to have Texas toast, I would have something like the Texas Dreamcatcher over there, which is just, hopefully you could see it, it's big as hell, and it's just ridiculous. Because, I mean, Dreamcatchers, statistically speaking, are like, maybe like 1/100th of that size. So having it that big, you could say that it's from Texas. People know what you're talking about. And how come there's like not other state toasts? Like there's no Illinois toasts, which I understand. Well, no, I don't understand. Because, you know, thinking Texas toast, you'd want to identify it as Texas, and Texas has got a really weird shape to it. But of all the states, I would probably say that Illinois has the weirdest shape, because, I mean, its borders a river, and the river kind of just does whatever it wants, which, I mean, if you were to try to draw that perfectly, you gotta have, like, the hands of a surgeon, or, I mean, you're just gonna be... But yeah, I'm definitely for, and I support all toasts for all states. I think I said that right. How come there's no state bagels? I don't think there's, like, a Texas bagel. Reminds me of my naming video that I did for colors. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for names. And I think if anybody can name anything, I can name stuff too. This is an Eric Glass. It is because I will it to be so. And anyone that has a problem can take it up with somebody who cares. Not that I don't care. I always care about my audience, but some opinions are less important than others. You know, keys are really useful. And I always wonder if it's like one of those like chicken and egg things, like which came first, the lock or the key. And I'm pretty sure that a lock would have to come first, because you would make the key afterwards. Because, I don't know, it'd be weird to make the key and then make a lock that the key works for. Keys have really come a long way, because, I mean, now they're made out of metal, and there's like an intricate pin system. But you think about, like, locks and keys as they're represented in, like, more biblical times, which it was as sophisticated as shove a rock in front of the door. Which, I mean, is a viable lock, as long as nobody that wants to get in there is strong enough or smart enough to move said rock. Huh. I can see Kleenex is sitting over there. It reminds me of brand recognition, because they're not called Kleenexes, they're called tissue paper. But brand recognition has been so good that people will say, I need a Kleenex, rather than I need tissue paper. Which I say bravo to them. I also see a flashlight. Which, flashlights obviously are very useful, but you think about the name. Flash and light. Flash is something that's very quick, or a comic book superhero. And then light, which represents light, which can be a complicated concept to go into altogether. But whenever you think of putting those two things together, it's a flash of light. So it would make more sense to have like a strobe light or a really quick flash of light than a continuous beam of light. I don't know, I guess sustainable light or a continuous light just didn't have a ring to it, as it will. Which, whenever I think about light bulbs, it reminds me how much I hate Thomas Edison. Which, I don't know, I try not to say that I hate anybody, but he ran a whole smear campaign against Nicola Tesla, someone that I like. Again, I've never met any of these people, but I'm just going off of the historical knowledge that I have from them. Because Tesla wanted to make energy free for everybody, and Edison wanted to monetize it. So, I mean, he ran a smear campaign against him, and he drew all the corporate support to him. So that's why we know Edison is someone who invented the light bulb, which he didn't. And he made he discovered direct current, which direct current is sending power from one source directly to another source where the power is used. Nikola Tesla discovered alternating current, which is what we use today, which is 1,000,000 times more efficient, where it alternates the current back and forth, and it requires less power to get more output, so it's just infinitely more useful. It just sucks that Nikola Tesla is like sort of forgotten in the annals of history, and Edison is the one that's praised. Even though if it wasn't for Tesla, like, our phone wires would be like the size of my head. Nikola Tesla invented a lot of cool stuff. Granted, the idea that he had for free power everywhere may not have been the soundest thing, but like all things, it was in development. Like, it was a Tesla tower, and the idea was to send wireless energy over long distances, so everything would be constantly powered, and there'd be no need to plug it in because it would be constantly being recharged. Now, it had the slight downside of, since you're just shooting off bolts of lightning in random directions, there is a slight possibility that it might accidentally or completely kill you, and you'd be dead. But, free power, so it's almost worth that kind of risk. Mopping's a thing. And the thing about mopping is, I feel like I'm a painter, and the mop is a giant paintbrush, and I'm painting the floor with invisible paint. And every time I paint the floor with invisible paint, it makes me think of Super Mario Sunshine, which I love that game. where Shadow Mario had the paintbrush, and to me, that sounds like a way cooler tool than like the lame water pump that Mario had, which for starters seems like a complete and utter waste of water. But like, this paintbrush had an infinite stream of like goop, and you could do all kinds of stuff with it. Like, you could paint monsters and creatures and cover the ground in goop and make all kinds of different stuff. And it just seems like the more creative tool, and then you have water that all it does is wash it away, which is more of a destructive tool and stuff. Which, again, I love the game, but I think it would just be needed to have the paintbrush, which reminds me of Okami, which reminds me of this shirt. Why I love this shirt. You know, I really hate tablecloths. I see why they serve a practical purpose and stuff. I just hate that it's on here, because whenever I try to draw on the table, it bugs me because it moves around so easily. And it's got that, like, plasticky noise, and it's got these table mats which are decorative, but they're not really good for anything, so they're always in the way, so I always throw the tablecloth off of it. Which reminds me, I always wanted to try that trick that you like see in the movies where people like rip the tablecloth off super fast, but I'm always worried that I would fail and break everything. Which, I mean, I understand how it works. That like whenever you pull it fast enough, you can overcome friction, so everything stays on the table and nothing flies off the table. But I feel like it would get stuck, or I wouldn't pull hard enough, and it would just be bad. Something that has happened very recently, I opened up a fortune cookie, and the fortune cookie was blank, which we all decided was not good for me. I was like, oh my god, this fortune cookie is blank. Does that mean I don't have a future to tell? Am I going to be dead soon? So everyone decided that I'm going to die soon because the fortune cookie was blank, which most likely it was just a packaging error, or they decided not to put a fortune in it. But then I opened up the next one, because I had two, and it said, unveil your ideas, be ready to act on them, which we all interpreted into, you're going to be dead soon, so whatever ideas you have, be ready to act on them, because you don't have long to live. Which, again, sounds pretty morbid. I like fortune cookies, and I don't know, I've always developed this, like, ritual of eating them, that you, like, whenever you crack it open, you have to eat the cookie before you read the fortune, otherwise it doesn't count, which they don't really count anyways, because it's just generalizations on paper that people can apply to anything, and if you want it to happen hard enough, it'll happen, because it's so general, it's something that happens to everyone. But even with that said, I regard it as sort of like supernatural evidence, because fortune cookies, I don't know. Whenever I think about life, if life's really undecided, or if it's destiny, whenever you get to the end, you only followed one path to get where you are. So while it might not be destiny, I think by the time that you get to the end, it is destiny, because you only followed one path. You only made the same choice over and over and over again, which reminds me of one of my favorite game series, and there's a quote from it that I think about and ponder a lot. And it says, you always wonder, and it was from Max Payne, I believe, 2. But it was, you always wonder, like, you wish you could go back through certain situations and make a different choice, but if you'd made a different choice, it wouldn't be you. And I think that that was definitely something interesting to say about life. Like, as much as a person may have regrets, if you didn't make that choice, literally speaking, you wouldn't be the person that you are now, because you wouldn't have that experience. You'd have a different experience, and you'd be a completely different person, even if it's a slight, minute change. And I think that's something very deep and interesting to think and wonder about. And I think about time travel, and like the multiple and infinite world theory, that there's an infinite amount of worlds, and any decision that could have been made or anything that could have happened has happened. So you've entered this like endless cycle. Like, if in this world they develop time travel, there's another world where they haven't developed time travel, and then there's another world where they've developed interdimensional travel, and they'll come to my world and stop time travel from happening. And then there will be another version of my world where they invent time travel where nobody comes to stop them from it happening. And it just becomes this like giant cluster of like all kinds of different ideas. And it brings into question like the ideas of infinities. And it's really weird. Like, whenever you think about infinity, it never gets to the end, and it goes on forever. But then you think about, like, that mind-blowing stuff, like, in between 1 and 2, since numbers go on forever, it's an infinite sequence. But you think about 1 and 3, that's an infinite sequence also. But that infinity is somehow bigger than the infinity between 1 and 2, but it's not. Because it doesn't have an end, but the bounds on it are further away, and it's just something that makes you feel like those cartoons whenever they're like head explodes and smoke rolls out their ears and things like that. You know, now that I think about it, all the windows in my room's not even technically a room, it's a sunroom. So I have nothing but windows, and I don't have any walls, which doesn't help whenever I try to hang things up. But it used to be a big problem whenever I was younger, because I would be up with the sun, because no matter which way it faced, the sun would come in through the windows. So I eventually was able to like put up blankets and stuff. But, you know, my mom always called it very like Hoosier, because I got blankets over my windows because I can't afford blinds. But, you know, what are blinds anyways? What's so great about blinds? Nothing. Because blinds are cheap, and they break, and they suck. You ever have those times where you're like pulling on the blinds, and you like can't get it to like work right, and you're pulling it to the left and the right, and then they have the really, really stupid blinds that have 3 different cords, which allow you to adjust the height, and then the specific inclination. Like at any point, you're going to be like, I need to see through the window, but I only need to see a diagonal slice of the window, so I'm going to completely slant it to one side. It's just so stupid. Why would you do that, blinds? Why, blinds? I don't know, blinds. Why? It seems like a complete oversight on my part. And then I have the same problem with fans. Normally, whenever you look at fans, there's supposed to be a rule followed that like the one in the center or the longest cord is the light, and then the shortest one is the fan. And then sometimes it's not the case, and sometimes they just have it on opposite sides, but they're both the same length, so it gets confusing which one's the light and which one's the lamp. And then there's like a confusing thing with the wiring, like sometimes like the light that I have in my room, whether the light switch is on or off, the fan will work. But sometimes, like in the living room, if the light switch is off, the fan won't turn on. So you can like pull the fan cord to try to turn it on, and then flip the switch, and then it doesn't work, and you can't tell if like you pull the cord so many times that you turn the fan off, or if it becomes that you actually flipped it from on to off.